Well, ladies and gentlemen, today it appears that we have yet another example of why you do not want a secular state. Today, Congress in the United States of America, one nation under God, supposedly, has taken away the national prayer breakfast in yet another tyrannical overreach of power where they have specifically targeted a Christian institution, or at least, at the bare minimum, a religious institution. But it was certainly started by Christians and for Christians, and now it has been taken away and given specifically to a secular body. And this secular body, which has no authority over it other than their own ego, now has absolute and total control over what is supposed to be a specifically religious institution. Because, oh yes, indeed, the separation of church and state only goes one way. The state may take all of the powers from the church, but the church may not take any powers from the state, because that's the reality when you set up a secular institution. And this is why we do not want secular institutions, because they take good things away and they befoul them. And that's what we're seeing happening here today. I have an excellent article, too, from the mainstream press, which gives you the impression of the institutions and their mindset that think that this sort of thing is a good idea. And here's your headline from NPR. Congress takes reins of prayer breakfast from secretive Christian evangelical group. I love that. They got to throw that word secretive in there to let you know what Congress did here was a good thing. Taking away the reins of the national prayer breakfast from Christian organizations, excellent. Keep it up. So what they've got here is, on its face, the National Prayer Breakfast is a serene, bipartisan event full of spiritual reflection. But over the years, the breakfast has also been a source of controversy, full of shadowy fundraising, behind-the-scenes lobbying, and even infiltration from a Russian spy. Can you imagine Russians going to a prayer breakfast? Insanity! They'll let China float surveillance balloons over the whole country, but a Russian coming to a prayer breakfast? Obscenity. So now lawmakers have taken it out of the hands of these secretive Christian evangelical group, that has run it for decades, a group known as the International Foundation, and is also known as the Fellowship Foundation, or the Family, a name which has been popularized in recent years by a book by the same name and a 2019 Netflix docuseries based on it. And this docuseries painted a picture of a clubby, closed-door group that had the ear of lots of Washington power players and bold-faced names without much transparency about their donors or agenda. And when Senators James Lankford, which is a Republican from Oklahoma, and I were co-chairs of the National Prayer Breakfast, so this article states, a number of years ago, there were lots of questions raised about the finances, about who was invited, and about how it was structured, said Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware, and chairman of the Senate Ethics Committee and frequent participant in the prayer breakfast. And we frankly had to admit, as co-chairs, we didn't know as much as we felt we should have. With Coons and others and several others' help, a new nonprofit group was formed, the National Prayer Breakfast Foundation, with the sole purpose of putting on the signature event. It's headed now by former Democratic Senator Mark Pryor of Arkansas, who said the first big change, in addition to the new legal status, is it will be smaller. And this is the key word here, and more controlled. We expect there to be maybe 300 people in attendance, he said, as opposed to the 3,500 or so that came in years past. So now it's going to be a much more exclusive event. There's going to be a lot less people involved. And the event has been moved from a prominent Washington hotel where it was typically housed in the U.S. Capitol to the U.S. Capitol complex. So now instead of being held in an outside location, now it's held specifically by Congress. It's held in the actual Capitol building. And it is very important to notice this because the location of your headquarters makes an extraordinary statement about the power players involved here. So they took it away from this foundation that they couldn't control. That's the big thing. Congress felt like they needed to control, and specifically this Democrat, Chris Coons, and the Democrat Mark Pryor of Arkansas felt like they needed to be able to control this. And because they weren't controlling what is just literally a prayer breakfast, literally that's what it is. People get together and pray, like for the country and stuff. But they felt like they couldn't control it, so they had to take that away from the outside organizations that were running it. They could have done a lot of different things if they felt like this was a corrupt organization. Like maybe not engage in corrupt acts when you go to the National Prayer Breakfast. I don't know, just a thought. But they decided that that wasn't going to work out, so they had to snatch it away, which is their typical plan, and party line, especially amongst the secularists in government. Because today we have, a large number of people in the active government that claim some form of Christianity or claim some form of religion in order to get elected, and then in reality they're secularists. They're secular humanists. They believe that the democratic ideal trumps any religious appeal. So the National Prayer Breakfast actually began in the 50s, which is another damning thing in their minds regarding this deal. It began by Dwight Eisenhower, whom they also don't like. He was the first president to ever attend in 1953, but it's been happening for 70 years, this prayer breakfast has. And it was inspired by Billy Graham, someone who was absolutely despised and hated by the secularists. And it's a Christian evangelical movement, and that Christian portion of the prayer breakfast is really what's actually going on here. Because we have to remember that what happened, we have to remember that the government is run by such individuals today as Joe Biden, who in 2021 managed to just not even mention God at all during the National Prayer Breakfast. And these ideas and these thoughts that these folks have ultimately are anti-Christian. And that's the whole thing that we're talking about today. That is everything that has to do with this particular subject, and it's why it's crazy to have a secular state, because the secularism always trumps the religious appeal of whatever religion that you have in your particular locality. Secularism is its own thing. It's its own belief system. It has its own tenets. It has its own ideals. It has its hierarchy of values, just like your religion, just like my religion, just like everybody else's religion. Secularism has its hierarchy of values, and they are opposed to us. They are opposed to anyone that holds a religious view. And it's totally destructive what these people have done, and they shouldn't be able to get away with it. But they did, and that is because we have a secular state. So once again, have to mention, we have to have a religious state. It has to have a serious national religion for a state to be able to maintain cohesion of religious beliefs, or you are guaranteed that some other belief system is going to come in and destroy your values. It's guaranteed. You set up a secular state, what do you say? I say that my religion isn't important enough to govern the country. My religion isn't good enough to govern the country. I cannot put my religion on someone else. Therefore, let somebody else put their religion over me. Because whoever's religion is in power, including secularism, whoever's religion has the reins of government, is going to govern you according to their hierarchy of values. You cannot escape this. Human beings govern each other according to the system of morality that they hold most dear. And secularists have a system of values, and we know what it is. We are not confused. We know what they believe, and we do not approve. So, no more. We need to set up real governments with real religious values, and that means monarchy. Only monarchy is going to be able to withstand the pressure of other religions trying to come in and swamp out the main religions, the ones that we hold to be right and true and fair and beautiful and best above all the rest. Only a monarchy is capable of withstanding the pressures from the outside to keep us on the right path. Thank you all for watching. Tremendously appreciate you. Tune in next time. Subscribe for me if you wouldn't mind. I would tremendously appreciate it. And we'll have plenty more to talk about later.